So a nice light touch with some humour, lots of interaction is what I'm about. And the whole idea is the case for the turretless tank, which is not really well understood by Anglo-Saxons, and that's the question. Now, I belong to the Institute of Royal Engineers, that's where the bulk of my work is. I look after all aspects of military engineering. The people that I work for, of course, are the Royal Engineers, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, NATO, and the United Nations. You cannot possibly be any good at military engineering unless you understand land warfare, and that's where I come in. My Hotmail address is here. It lasts for 100 years, and if anyone wants any help, it is abundantly clear from the last 3 tank fests, helping people in this way works really well. Now, before I go on, one of the great helpers in this country of turretless tanks, Weald Foundation near Maidstone in Kent, headed by an extraordinary friend of the Tank Museum, a gentleman called Mike Gibb. Sadly, Mike passed away last year at the unfortunate age of 62. Really, really unfortunate. What a top man was he in terms of restoration of vehicles and helping people learn the technical and tactical aspects of this extraordinary technology. And indeed, his Renault vehicles are here for Tankfest this time. Well done, Mike. Now, that's what I'm going to do. Look at the pros and cons of these extraordinary creatures, not really understood by the British because we don't really do it like the Germans and the Soviets and others have done. Now, you might say, wait a minute, Royal Engineers and tanks, this doesn't make sense. Well, here's a question for you, and I'd like your answers to this, so please do shout out. And here are 4 characters, and my first question is, who are they? My second question is, what's their connection to the tank? And my third question is, what else do they have in common? Now, Oliver, in the front there, you are to say nothing, sir, because you've got inside information, but the balance, please. Could I have some offers, please? Anyone? Hobart. Sir, please shout out. Hobart. General Sir Percy Hobart, bottom left, thank you, good start. Can anyone add? Going once, going twice. Do I have an offer? No, no, okay. Top left, General E.D. Swinton, the man who's credited with building the tank. The gentleman in the middle is Major General Ellis, and he led the first tank attack, and that is Cambrai, November 1917. Gentleman on the right, General Martel, Lee Martel, absolutely key with tank development between the wars. And then finally, General Hobo, PCS Hobart, again, development of the tank. The idea of the tank in his real final moment is the application of specialist armour and the D-Day in the funnies and so on. That's their connection. What else they have in common is they're all Royal Engineers. And the tank, as we know it today, starts off with these 4 engineers saying, we can do something a bit better, and just look at the effect they had. That's my excuse for being on the stage today. Now, that's my aim, which you know, and the references to understand this, the left, Osprey Publishing, excellent American company, some very, very good products. Those 2 on the left, not expensive and well worth getting. On the right, 2 memoirs of veterans who were using these sort of vehicles and the effect that they had. Now, what we already know about tanks and what I call the holy trinity of mobility, firepower and protection in any tank, and it's those 3 factors that move and adjust according to, well, what is it you actually want that vehicle to do? Top left, you've got Chieftain, classic main battle tank, defined a defensive battle in the NATO in the 80s, one of my part in the Cold War. On the right, that little very nice Ferret scout car, which there's one just over there in Berlin, brigade colours. Bottom left, that's a people carrier, you call it a Bradley, get infantry on the objective, a bit of firepower, and that's that. And on the right, an utterly lovely tank, I speak as a Royal Engineer, with a big bridge on it to cross gaps. Okay, so what you want the wagon to do drives the Holy Trinity. Now, So what about the role of the turretless tank? Well, in a nutshell, it's the provision of fire support. Mobile fire support. Well, okay, so far so good. That's what tanks do. But then let's look, how does that work? To turret or not to turret? Left, the venerable T-34-85, and on the right, the Su-85, the turretless version. Okay, so where's the method in the madness? Well, tanks without a turret. What, ladies and gentlemen, are the big payoffs of having a tank without a turret? Anyone, please? Yes, please, ma'am. I'm afraid I can't hear you. Yeah, the wagon is much smaller, and the wagon is much simpler. That's a good start. Can anyone add to that?
Cheaper.
Yes, please.
Cheaper.
This is not. I wonder if we could get a microphone, please. All these things next door making all this row. Cheaper to produce. Thank you. That's another one.
Less traversion on the turrets when you aim at a target.
Thank you. That doesn't normally come up. Thank you. Well done. Tank technology. Yes, sir.
Mounts a bigger gun.
Mounts a bigger gun. Absolutely. Okay. Well, easier to make, cheaper to produce. Can mount a bigger gun. We'll see that in a moment. It's lower in size. It's much smaller, and that is important in terms of the user and morale, and a very important bit of trying to stay alive and to get home to see the family after the war. Also less weight. Now, some of the cons are, can I have some offer on the cons, please? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, limited traverse, that's one. Another one, please. Okay, well, limited traverse, I'm trying to see in the sun, and yet, in terms of economics and simplicity, is yet another type of vehicle to produce. The essence of war is to outproduce, so you're producing more material than your opponent, so you can defeat him. Exactly what's going on with the Ukraine war at the moment, but our forefathers knew all about this in both the First and Second World War. The battle of material. Now, here's how one Soviet tank soldier saw the arrival of his turretless tank. It's low in height. There's a good chance he might get home. It's worth remembering the Soviet Union, of which Ukraine was one of the socialist republics, is going to lose 27 million people between 1941 and 1945, of which 8 million people came from Ukraine. I mean, the figures are just off the scale. So that point is more important than perhaps we know. And here is his view. Now, a good example of Soviet thinking on this is this creature. This is the Su-76. It sits covered in dust in the Vehicle Conservation Centre on your left, and I hope you'll have a chance to see it before the end of Tank Fest. Look at how small it is, how light it is, yet it's carrying a very potent 76.2mm ZIS. In plain English, that will knock the eyebrows off a fly quite nicely if 1500 certainly upset the German opponent. But because it's so light, look at this. This is 1945. This is the race to Berlin. This is the final push crossing the Oder. And because the Oder, with that exceptionally cold winter, is frozen, the ice is strong enough to withstand the weight of those little self-propelled vehicles, those turretless tanks getting over, and therefore supporting everything. That mobile, guaranteed mobile fire support. You might say, well, so blinking what? Well, just look at the proof. Ask the Germans. Here is the German attack by a battalion of brand new Panthers, formed and trained at a place called Sennelager. And those of you who have served will start smiling, because that's where the British are today. They come up and put in a series of attacks. They can get nowhere because the Soviet infantry have got these 36 of these gallant little vehicles, the second most produced vehicle after the T-34. A turretless, very modest but very effective vehicle. Proof of the pudding. Now, here I must make a point about respect for others and respect for German culture. And here you see a couple on holiday, and this is my Vorsprung durch Technik, trying to make you laugh. It's the end of the day, beer time, you get the idea. Well, progress through technology. Now the German culture is you lay out your towel the night before, and that's where you're going to be the next day beside the pool. Now the Anglo-Saxon and everyone else don't understand that. So how does the German tourist cope with that problem? I'm going to run this clip of film. There's a bit of German in it. I'll turn that into English so you've got the idea. German couple on holiday just coming up after 8 o'clock in the morning. Good morning. What time is it? Not interested. It's after 8 o'clock, so what? I'll tell you what, I want a place by the pool. We have no places. I want to have a place by the pool. We may be too late. There's only 2 places left, and those bloody English are about to go in. Fear not, German technology. Stand aside, madam.
Bloody Germans.
Verdammte Deutsche. All right, I've got several smiling faces. Yes, we're getting, okay. Herzlichen Dank, as they say in Germany. Okay, now look at the German side to small vehicles. And I would offer, as a professional soldier, that across NATO, the vehicles are too big, too fat, too expensive, too complicated, too heavy. But look at this little one here. This is the German Hetzer, modified on a Czech chassis, a great success. Look at how small it is, weight, and a very respectable armament, the 75-meter Abwehr cannon, which was proven in this role. And also a remote machine gun. Again, the idea is not new. Now just look at the evidence here from the fighting in Warsaw. And then look at that hit rate below. That's a very, very decent result. And when you consider that mechanical breakdowns is by far the biggest cause of casualties on German arms, this little Hetzer with this proven automotive Czech system, it does the business. There is a Hetzer in the museum, and again, well worth looking at in the main part of the museum. Now let's come to the Jagdpanther. Now this is the Panther, only turrets taken off, and it's got its armament, and that's the one you see on the right. Now let's look at this and see where this takes us. Now what do you think the pros are of that Jagdpanther? Anyone, please?
Frontal armour, this gun.
Got a very big gun. It's in fact holding an 88mm, not 75. And that's the one made by Rheinmetall. And here's the really good news, British citizens. Britain's next tank, Challenger 3, the turret, is made by the same people that made this gun kit, which means that our soldiers are going to have some equipment that truly is first class, because it's Vorsprung technique and tells by the... You've got the idea. Okay. Okay, so 88 compared to the 75, it's lower by nearly a foot, 225mm, that's useful, and improved protection. A serious amount of metalwork on the front because it hasn't got a turret, and therefore it can put that saved metal into more protection for the vehicle. Okay, see it in the context that when this comes into service, its real value is in all the defensive battles that the Germans are fighting at the back end of World War II. And again, I'll come up with worked examples of that in a moment. Now, what are the disadvantages of the Jagdpanther, ladies and gentlemen? Anyone, please? There's some good work going on here. Well done, ma'am.
1, it's lower. 2, it's upside down.
Yes, it was the right way up. Thank you. Can anyone add to that, please?
It's lacking the anti-air cover that the Allies would have had in the period when it was brought into the fight.
Good point. I've never thought of that, but absolutely right. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, let's look at this. Limited gun traverse. Automotive, the big problem with German armour is the automotive bit is not been sorted out. We've got to get on service, and it isn't gallant RAF or the very dogged British infantry or the gallant armour with their 70-pounder Fireflies that causes the chaos in Normandy. Our German armour friends, their biggest problem is breakdown. They are losing wagons left, right and centre because of the breakdown factor. No change with Jagdpanther. Okay, yet another wagon, so the economics, the mass production bit is not easy. Compare that to the Soviets. Their problem is much simpler because they stay with the 34 chassis, crank it out by the 1,000, same detail with the self-propelled version. Okay, and training and admin is more complicated as well. Now, other disadvantages which are less obvious. Ergonomics. Now, if you look at the driver's station on the Panther, which is the lower picture, now look at Jagdpanther. Can anyone tell me there's a problem there? What is it? Thank you, sir. Observation. Jagdpanther is in this shell. The protection's great, but when it comes to moving around in the night, your best way of seeing things is hatch open, not looking through optics, and you can see in the dark. You can't do that with Jagdpanther. Now I must tell you, and this is why the late Mike Gibb was so kind to the Tank Fest, hopefully we can do it in the future, he allowed people to get inside the vehicle. You see what an ergonomic nonsense this really is. Health and safety does have its place. Jagdpanther, not that good. Now, the loader station, as I say, is a health and safety nightmare waiting to happen. There's another reason why Jagdpanther is not as good as it could be. There's a clue there with that picture.
Brewing up.
Anyone?
No BV.
No boiling vessel. Can anyone tell me, thank you, why, in the Ukrainian opinion, is Challenger 2 doing so well compared to our American and German equivalents?
Big BV.
It has a boiling vessel because the Ukrainians will tell you at minus 17 in the Ukrainian January, hot, sweet, bright Russian tea keeps you going. The Panther and the Leopard and the Abrams boys have got no such opportunity. That's me trying to make you laugh. No one's laughing. Okay, all right, please accept. Right, so now proof of the pudding. So much. Let's look at history and just show how these wagons actually work. Here is Jagdpanther on the Vistula, and Lieutenant Hermann Bix, who's going to win the Knight's Cross. It's about the equivalent of the Distinguished Service Order in the British parts, or the Silver Medal for the Americans. There he is in East Prussia, 16 wagons, and it's all about to go wrong. His biggest problem is shortage of ammunition and fuel. But then here he is, and there's the gun sight of the Jagdpanther, and here's what he says. And the Germans, having discussed this with several veterans, thought the world of that 88mm gun kit. What you see, you hit. Very, very great confidence. They've got good tools for the job. So that's the Eastern Front. Now let's come to the Western Front and Normandy. And this is Captain the Honourable Willie Whitelaw MC. More senior members may remember from the time of Baroness Thatcher's time as the Prime Minister that Mr. William Whitelaw was the confidant and the aide to Baroness Thatcher, and certainly a good staying hand, a comfortable hand in helping Thatcher get through the Falklands War in '82. Now he's a young officer in 1944, he's in Normandy, and there he is with his tanks advancing through the barrage, and this comes from a battlefield study done by the British Army. So here is the advance. They've landed, they're now about to break out. The bit known as Operation Bluecoat is supporting the American thing known as Cobra, and here on Hill 226, Captain Whitelaw's company of Scots Guards Churchill tanks run into a platoon of Jagdpanthers on 226. So these are the two principal vehicles, and there is the ground. It's all still there today. Well done, Normandy. Nothing has changed, so it's easy to understand. And just look at Captain Whitelaw's recollections. They were absolutely appalled at the casualties they took so quickly by this Rheinmetall gun in this Jagdpanther tank. Proof of the pudding in the fighting. So that was the aim, using the different practice. And what then came after this? You might say, well, so what in 1945 onwards? Well, the influence is great. On the left you have there the Canon Jagdpanther 1962 to 90. It's on YouTube to see more, some very good material on YouTube. But look at Jag Chieftain. That bottom picture there, ladies and gentlemen, is a Chieftain chassis adopted for the idea of a Jagdpanther type idea. The British are hugely impressed with that Gus, the 88mm, and again the budget and everything when this is developed, it's worth having a look and see what Jag Chieftain looks like. It's overtaken by what's now known as the case for the universal tank. So you take Challenger 2 and it does all the jobs you want it to do. You don't need specialist vehicles, and you can see the advantages and disadvantages of a policy like that. Now another idea coming onto the stage post 1945 is the guided missile, and again I would make a case here for the top 10 missiles again on YouTube. Good education. Now just to look at the pros and cons of guided missiles, and again this is worth taking some time because it's not quite what it seems. On the left you have a couple of German vehicles with guided missiles at 60. On the right, the venerable Ferret with the Vigilant system there. On the bottom right there, the Soviet equivalent with a missile known as Spandrel. Now, can anyone tell me what's the big plus of the anti-tank guided missile? Anyone, please?
Shape charge. Fire and forget.
Ma'am, you're setting an excellent example. Go on, please.
Behind cover.
Oh, very good. We'll come to that in a moment with swing fire. Another one, please.
Range of missiles and guidance systems that they can use for them.
Is the correct answer. Anyone else, please? This is going well. I'm hugely pleased. Thank you.
It can carry a shape's change.
Yes, and that's also useful in terms of design, top attack, and other nasties like that as well. Okay, well, accurate. The top right there is the British aerospace weapon known as swing fire. Swing fire, this is mounted on the British GKN Sankey 432, known as the 438. This creature could hit up to 4,000 meters. Very accurate. It's a precision guided munition, and it worked very well in its day. Now the bottom picture there is the same missile system mounted on Spartan, and this was known as Striker. And again, in its day, it worked very well indeed, and we used these in First Gulf War in 1991, and our cavalry, our reconnaissance regiments with their Striker, very pleased with it. Now, another pro of the guided, you can mount it on anything, including anti-tank aircraft in the anti-tank role, and it can be remotely fired. And at the point that came out earlier, just look at this. So here is a 1976 pamphlet picture, land operations. There is your 438 in a reverse slope, so hidden out of sight. The operator is on the forward slope, picks up the offending target, launches his missile, brings it to bear. The poor old target has got no chance with something like that. That's 1976 technology. Now if you sprinkle in top attack, drones and everything else, you can see the anti-tank battle is taking a slightly different direction in a way first envisaged by the British as early as 1976. Now what, and this on the right is our friend 83 Saga, used by the Egyptians with great effect in Yom Kippur, so much so the Israelis, when they were appalled to see this, came to the view that the tank might have had it. Now, that's on day 2 of Yom Kippur, October the 6th, 1973. Not quite. Now what are the cons of the anti-tank guided missile? Anyone, please?
Expense.
Gentleman with the white hat, please.
Expense.
Hold on.
The expense of each missile.
Gobsmackingly offensive. For one guided missile, you can get 12, up to 12, 20 rounds, depends on which caliber you're dealing, of normal tank ammunition. So economics, not inexpensive. Go on, sir.
Also the flight time, as the Israelis found out, you could pass to the area they were firing from with a machine gun. The operator lost control of the missile and it missed.
Precisely. and that certainly is applicable even as far as Javelin today. Yes, please.
Can only be used at long range and in open terrain.
Yeah, there's a minimum launching time, whereas you've got something in a street battle, you know, literally 30 metres, Challenger 2's got no problem, but if you've got something like a Javelin or a tow or a hot, that kind of thing, it's got a minimum launch time of something like 400 metres, so that's far too much distance in certain ground and certain conditions. Go on.
It can be jammed or destroyed by half-kill or soft-kill measures.
Absolutely, and that's the kind of thing going on with drones at the moment in Ukraine. So you do go back to a wire-guided system, which means you don't have to worry about EW, or do you do something else? And again, it comes back to our old friend in land warfare: measure, countermeasure, measure, another countermeasure, and so it goes on. Well, okay, I explained the economics bit, time of flight you covered, and again, another thing is tank rounds can do solid shot, fin, high explosive, smoke, canister, ATGM can't really get into it. I would say if there's one other thing, it's probably top attack. If you look at the way Javelin has well and truly upset Russian armour in 2022, top attack is definitely everything from N-Law through to Javelin has got its place. Now, what about the practice today? Well, in summary, a dedicated anti-tank vehicle on any platform can do the business. And again, the universal tank has definitely found its feet in terms of economics and everything. It's working rather well. May I say, behind us is a drop-dead gorgeous tank. Look at that bridge layout. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a proper tank with a nice big bridge. That's a number 12 tank bridge.
Number 10.
Very, very nice, very British. I mean, sorry, I'm a Royal Engineer. You'll forgive me.
So am
the
I.
outburst.
It's a 10, not a 12.
Okay. So that's what we did. Look at the pros and cons of the turretless tank against the turreted version. Good general education with an attempt to try and be funny. And thank you for humouring me. If I may say, so much for Yag Panther. What about the Yag Pussycat? And this is Kate the cat in a tank, because I have so much for tanks, yeah, of course. But cats make the world go round. And on that note, my talk is finished. I'd now like to overflow the floor open for questions, and my very kind assistant will circulate with the microphone. Any questions, please? Any comments? Any questions and comments, please?
Yeah, I mean, you've laid out the pros and cons. I just wondered, is there any development of turretless tanks nowadays? I know the Swedish developed one, but nothing seems to have moved on since then. I mean, would it be a good idea? From what you were saying earlier, you seem to think that modern tanks are too big, too expensive, too cumbersome, and something simpler may do the job in the future.
May I say that's a very important question, and forgive the chat up line, I really think it is. Because I'm frightened, I mean, and this is the kind of problem the Chancellor of the Exchequer and I would completely agree with. We've got a financial problem across NATO, so we've got to be very careful how we spend our money. So far, so thriftman-like. Okay, why don't you take something like Hetzer, bring that up to date, or the Duro 76, because it does half do rather well. And it's simple. Now, the Israeli Armoured Corps, great, very, very impressive people. My last trip out there, I mean, looking at Makava, Wonder Mark V, and the director said to me, he says, you know, I drill this into my soldiers. If it isn't simple, it simply won't work. And disarming simply, easy to repair, easy to train, easy to manufacture. Why is it our Soviet friends with their T-34 are going to win the war? Because it can produce lots more than our German friends. And yes, it's rough and it's ready and it's crude and it's a Kalashnikov, but my word, it does the business. And I think, now in terms of the self-propelled gun and the turretless gun, this reminds me of fashion. Fashions come and go. I think the last time this was looked at was the S-tank. And when you look at what the Swedes are doing, an interesting idea, but it certainly hasn't caught on. And I think that's because the universal tank can do it all, Leopard 2, but equally the guided has changed things, and you add on top attack, and that's probably why it's never picked up. What is useful is to look at this in terms of what we've done, because it then helps understand how we might go in the future. But I'm absolutely clear, and please quote me to whoever you want, that our current, right across NATO, no exception, the kit is too big, too loud, too expensive, too complicated, and they haven't been shot at. If I drop half a dozen rounds of Korean 152mm high explosive on any of these creatures here on parade, none of them will survive. That can't be right. Next question, please. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, yeah. One moment, come straight back. Yeah.
It almost follows on from what you've just said then. The S-Tank, I know, was evaluated by the British and compared against the Chieftain, and they did find that both had advantages and disadvantages. Adding to that, I think also it's worth bearing in mind what you're saying is very reminiscent of what Paddy Griffith said in the 1970s and 80s in Knocked Over by Christmas. I'm just wondering why you feel that the British didn't go down the route of the S-Tank.
If I could be frank, I think there's a bit of not invented here syndrome. At the time you're talking about, and the late Paddy Griffiths is a great authority, and along with Colonel George Forty, I mean, put me through the mill as a youngster here in the early 80s and taught me so much, and I'm so grateful for what they did. Because Gulf War I and all the other stuff I've done was a piece of cake, because the way these people made me think about armour. I think there's another difficulty at the stage. We are in the afterglow of Centurion, which was fantastic, and the universal tank answer everything. So did they ever do a YAG Centurion? No, they didn't. And again, when you're talking about this massive pressure coming down from the Treasury, and they have their point. Yes, we're going to make a really good tank. It's going to be called Son of Centurion. It's called Chieftain, but we haven't got any money to do anything else. We might have come up with a mock-up called YAG Chieftain, but that's as far as it's going to go. I also think as well, if you look at the British pamphlets and the way they think they're going to conduct operations, forwards, backwards, left and right on the battlefield, the British will look and say, well, universal tank has won the argument. I mean, people like Field Marshal Carver's arguments with E.Q. Martel and British Army Review, 1945-46, you see it, and it's come firmly down. So the self-propelled turretless tank has fallen to the rear. What I must say is to go into the whole discipline, and Mike Gibbs' toys in Maidstone there and the wagons here, you learn a huge amount, and certainly when I'm teaching the Army these different ideas, the students are just lapping it up, they're getting lots of good education. Any more questions, please? Yes, please.
Do you have a favourite engineering vehicle?
I must resist a 2-hour answer. I wouldn't really turn it off. It has to be the Centurion Avery with the 165mm demolition gun. And if you speak after, please take my hotmail. I'll send you an article about future engineered tanks and what matters. And there's a nice attempt at humour in that as well. And there's no doubt about it. These extraordinary sapper officers that went through the specialist armour and General Sir Percy Hobart. Coming out of that comes the Churchill Avery. That goes on to about 1963. It has a 6.5 demolition gun. The 165mm, 3 of these vehicles in a troop of 6, 3 bridge layers, 3 Averies. You can take out anything up to 800 metres with no problem, because you've got nearly 2 tons of high explosive scorching lead. Correctly applied, proper demolition, no problem. Thank you for the question. I must say, Centurion's a gentleman's tank. It's not dirty, it keeps you warm, it's reliable, it's easy to repair, and it's got a boiling vessel. I have to say that Chieftain has been described by a corporal of horse of the Household Cavalry one day on exercise Bergenona. He's looking at my Centurions, looks at his Chieftains that are arriving. He says, bloody hell, sir, it strikes me that Chieftain compared to your clean wagons is 60 tons of screaming dermatitis. The gentleman had a point. Thank you. Any more questions, please? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm huge. You've been very decent with the pub not coming far away. End of the day, that was a very good effort. Back again tomorrow morning. I'm very, very pleased. I'll hang around if anyone would need any on the after sales service. Thank you for your interest and enjoy Tankfest. Thank you.